Call to order. The governing board meeting is called to order at 5 p.m. Everyone, please stand for the flag salute. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call. Let the record reflect that all members of the governing board and administration are present. Approval of agenda. It is recommended that the governing board approve the agenda of the March 16th, 2023 governing board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion. Thank you, trustee Ahmad. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, trustee Frutos. Is there any discussion on the item? All right, with no discussion on the item, we will move to approve the agenda. All in favor? Aye. And I'm an aye. Motion passes 5-0. Hearing session. The audience members may request to address the board on an item on the agenda. Per board bylaws 9323, individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the governing board on each agenda item. The board limits the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. The total time allowed for public comment shall be 30 minutes. Audience members wishing to address the board during the hearing session of the agenda shall fill out a request to address the governing board form and turn it in to the executive assistant prior to the board holding the hearing session. Do we have any request?
No.
Thank you. Discussion calendar. Superintendent search process, meeting with leadership associates, search firm advisors to discuss the following. Overview of search process, board search firm protocols during the search, discussion of online survey, board recommendation regarding community and staff groups to participate in input sessions with the leadership associates consultants, timeline for the search, board input regarding desired qualities and characteristics of new superintendent. So let me welcome Dr. Verdugo and Mrs. Sanchez Thorstenson. Oh, it's a Thorstenson.
Okay.
All right, thank you. From the Leadership Association. Okay. So we're going into closed session.
No.
No. Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, so public employee appointment discussion.
This is, this discussion about the superintendent process.
Okay, so all the things that were listed. All right. Let's see, what was the first one?
Well, you could just hand it over.
Okay.
Great.
Well, I'll hand it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Chia. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Jed,
Shad.
yes.
Okay, thank you so much, President Shad. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking such quality time for being with us. We'd like to say on behalf of Sandy and myself, thank you again for the opportunity to help facilitate this, very, very important decision that you're making, of course. And the president did generally go over some of the bullet points that we're trying to cover this evening. I would like to, first of all, alert the board members to the packets that you have either available or in front of you. And I think Aaron has done that, if I'm not mistaken. There is what I might call some discussion points or agenda points that we'll cover in that packet. And before I do that, Sandy, do you want to say anything?
I just would like to thank you for the opportunity. As we mentioned to Aaron a little earlier, we felt really, really connected and felt very warm about our experience with you when we were here last, and we really want to thank you so much for this opportunity, and we'll give you everything we got. It's a great experience for all of you.
And so with that, we'd like to begin discussing and reviewing some of the search process itself. If you have your packet in front of you and you have that information sheet, We're going to begin with number 2, which is designate a board's liaison and spokesperson for the board, specifically with us. And generally and typically, ladies and gentlemen, that is the board president. So if there's some information that needs to be provided and shared accordingly, then we would want that to be the board president. But you'll have to ask and get some consensus at this point in time, if that is the case.
Great. Do you have any discussion?
I think the question is, are you able to do it? Or, and if you are, then we're all okay from my end.
I'm okay with that. too.
All right, then I'll be the spokesperson.
Thank you so much. We are on number 3, the confirmation of that the executive assistant, Erin, has received the guidelines and templates from our administrative staff. And at this point in time, I just want to say thank you to Erin McPhillips. She's just been so gracious and so willing of her time to give to me and others, to Sandy and to Serena Farrington, our executive assistant as well. So Erin, thank you so very, very much. And again, confirming that Serena has provided all of that
Yes.
information. Great, great. We have our on number 4 now, and that is that we have been provided this information from each of you and from Erin itself. We want to next talk a little bit about number 5, discuss the use of input from the board, stakeholder groups, and the online survey results in the development of the position profile or position description. There should be a second page, which is considered more of a template of examples of the community input session and the examples of the groups that we typically would invite. But we would ask the board that you take a couple of minutes here, review it very quickly, and let us know if there's other stakeholder groups that you'd like to add to this particular list or delete. So for example, I'll just go to, for example, Chamber of Commerce. Does Buena Park maintain a Chamber of Commerce, or is there a kind of a United Chamber of Commerce group around here? That would be a question that we would ask.
North Orange County, yeah. It's the North Orange County.
North Orange County. Okay,
So man, I would, for me, I would say there's no need for Chamber of Commerce. There's no need for, superintendents of neighboring districts. And then, as I was looking at it, I looked at this before, city council members. And business partners. Those
Just
are
quick
the-
question on feedback. This is just for all of us to see and you, or is this, how's this feedback gonna mold itself? So what are we looking at? So
Perfect,
that's what
yeah.
will help us eliminate some
Right.
groups if we need.
this is an example of the groups that we typically invite or that boards and trustees invite so that they have stakeholder input on the characteristics, the traits, the skill sets, the experiences, personal and professional, that they desire most or that they'd like to see in your next superintendent. And we'll go through that exercise with the trustees as well towards the end of this particular discussion session. What we do is we set up times with Erin and Sandy and myself to meet with these people either personally or through Zoom. Most recently, there has been a desire to do Zoom. It's maybe a post-COVID kind of thing, but nevertheless, Zoom has been very accurate and it's been very user-friendly in many respects. So we typically take 2 or 3 days, and we'll talk about some calendar items in a couple of minutes, where we would dedicate ourselves to either be here in Buena Park, perhaps in one of these offices, meeting with individuals, or perhaps even a community forum at, let's say, one of your middle schools, a multi-purpose room perhaps, or a gymnasium, where we would invite the community as well. So.
Just because I'm asking that, because I think it would be interesting to hear feedback from like a business partner, if that's something we're looking at, what our previous superintendents were able to do in terms of relationships within the community, to see what they're actually looking for. It doesn't mean that's the end all, right? that
Yeah,
we're looking at.
I'm just coming from, that'll take a longer time.
That's a
Like,
good question. is it?
I'm sure they have a lot of input but I'm just thinking it'll probably make the process a little longer when you're trying to organize either Zoom meetings or personal meetings with all of these groups. I just feel like it pushes us back off a lot.
That's a good question, actually. Is that gonna happen or?
Generally, if it's Zoom, on any given day, Sandy or myself will typically have about 10 entries or 10 groups perhaps that we would meet with. Because it's the two of us, we're able to break that up a little bit. Over a 2-day period of time, you're probably looking at least double this perhaps, but we keep it pretty tight. We have a 30-minute window period for that information to be provided to us. We're very specific on the questions that we ask.
And sorry, one more thing, does that include not just Zooms, but online surveys as well, and that kind of stuff can go out to these groups?
Right, and we'll discuss the online survey in a moment. It's on one of the topic items. The online survey is additional information that again is user-friendly, where someone can simply go to your website, obtain the information on the survey, take it. It's exactly the same questions on that instrument that we are asking of stakeholders on a personal basis as well.
Thank you.
I think to Darla and Strong's point, we have the Buena Park Collaborative. That's pretty much where the bulk of the partners are included and participating. So and Miss Monique Davis, she's the one that runs those the Buena Park Collaborative.
Yes.
And that'd be Monique Davis. Should be a resource to kind of unite all those partners into one meeting and for you guys to be able to use, because that's for we use some of those partnerships within our district. So it's maintaining those relationships as well that would help us out.
Perfect, Mr. Frutos. And we do depend on Aaron to begin setting up those meetings, if you will, if we can call them stakeholder input sessions.
I would agree with trustee Ahmad and say, get rid of, I'm okay with not doing the Chamber of Commerce and the business partners. And the booster groups, I would include as one. I don't think we need to, because I'm assuming that's more like high school oriented. Unless it's an internal booster clubs, I don't even know if we have many of those, but PTA is already included. I'm assuming it's not that. So I would say that those three, I would be kind of like maybe not, and the Education Foundation, which is our own, which is great. And then I would be interested in the superintendent feeding, because we know we have been looking at our district connecting with a lot of the North Orange County districts. It's just a feedback to see what the superintendents look at when they're looking for people too. And it's good feedback that if we know candidates, they may know of some qualities. That's something that I would be interested to hear what they're looking for. That would be important for us to look at as well. But I would say those three, I would think for me might be okay to not contact. That's
So if I may, just to reiterate, Chamber of Commerce, number 19. Also Business Partners, 23.
And booster
And
number
boosters.
21.
Thank you.
That's just my suggestion. I'm just throwing out.
Yeah, no, I agree with, when I looked, that's what I saw also.
And then will you be able to elaborate a little bit more on number 13, students and student board reps?
Generally, districts, school sites maintain, for example, their own ASBs, the Associated Student Body Group. But we also want to make sure that if there's any other affinity groups that are connected to the school, we want to make sure that we hear the student voice as well. And we're really delighted when that happens. Typically, Sandy or I will go to a school site, or again, they've done Zoom as well. We've been able to depend on advisors or vice principals and principals to set that up. But it's interesting to listen to the student voice as well.
Yeah.
Probably the middle school.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good component to include because based on their experiences, they're pretty much setting up success for previous students as they're, growing up or get to that middle school age. So it'd be nice to get their input as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yep.
And as you can see, we don't have student board reps.
Correct.
Like make sure that this community engagement portion, it is labor intensive for us, but it's a very critical piece of the process to make sure. But we serve as your ambassadors, and we let them know the board has identified these groups. They want to hear your input. They want to seek your feedback. They want to hear your opinions. And we'll start with you this evening, as David mentioned. And then as we meet with all of these folks, it helps us to develop the position description that we then provide to you in the. It's a very important part of the process, and it's just helpful to make sure that your community certificated classified staff, parents, middle school kids, whoever, and community partners, that they feel part of the process.
So I think we've been able to affirm or confirm rather what the list will consist of at this point in time. And should there be any modifications or suggestions that the board feels is important at a later point, feel free to let me know. We can add that to that group.
No comment about city council.
No, we think city council did.
I had said, but, I'm okay if you guys want to ask. I just, my thing is it gonna be more like you contact all these groups and say, we're doing a Zoom on Tuesday at 3 o'clock if you're able to attend, or is it, we'd like to talk to you and we need your input. When are you available? How is it working?
We typically work through the executive assistant to confirm who might be on any given day and any given time. And it's an invite, if you will. It's not as open-ended as what you perhaps just described, but rather an invite so that we know that we're going to be having some contact with them. And as Sandy started to mention, they really do feel delighted about the fact that this board has asked them for their opinion as well in terms of a stakeholder. The board will go through that process a little bit later.
So let's say city council isn't able to meet within those 2-3 days that you're doing.
I see.
Does that now push us back a little bit more?
It doesn't necessarily.
No, we encourage everybody, and it'll be a message on your website, everyone, whether they're part of the input sessions every half hour or not, to express themselves through the online survey at any time,
Okay.
24/7.
So if they can't do it during that time frame, then
Yes.
you would tell them, okay, please go through the survey. Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be posted for 2 weeks, so, and regular reminders from the admin staff
Okay.
to reach out, and we rely on the principals to make sure that their parents that they represent, that they're reminded through email. Please make sure that you log on to the online survey, that the link will be posted on the district's website. So there'll be lots of opportunity for people if they're not available within the 2-day period of time, but it's, chunk every 30 minutes, and they get the time that works for them, if it doesn't work for them, then they get to the office.
Okay.
And we will monitor that survey. Should we not get a lot of respondents, we'll make sure that we work with your site principals to remind the public, the parents, for example, to take advantage of the survey as well. We're still on number 5 in terms of this discussion item. But you'll see that there's a few bullets under number 5. We affirm the stakeholder groups, and that template, we will make sure to work with Aaron on that. The position description, as Sandy started to mention, typically that position description will have a description of the community and the district, but it'll also, towards the end of the development of that position description, have the characteristics, the traits, the skill sets, the personal and professional experiences that you desire most in your next superintendent. So there may be some themes that come out of not only the trustees, but some themes that come out of the stakeholder input sessions that you need somebody to be, for example, a servant leader, someone who has financial experience, someone who's been in the classroom, someone who's had K-8 experience or TK-8 experience. So those things kind of come up to the surface as main themes or points that you desire most. And we will not move forward with that position description until you approve it. So you will review it first before we put it out to anyone who might be interested in the position.
It helps us with the recruiting process. We want to make sure that we're recruiting people who are a good match for what you, when you're in, really stated the most important characteristics that'll serve your.
The last bullet that you see under number 5, the online survey dates and specific languages. It had been under our understanding that Korean, Spanish, and English were the majority of the languages that the survey instrument should be in. Is that the case?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. And as far as dates are concerned, they're a little flexible. We would like to shoot for March 20th through the 29th. However, in working with Aaron, I think we're going to need to look at whether or not that we are capable, the district is capable of putting that together. Aaron has already received samples of the Korean, the Spanish, and the English survey, so we do have it on board, but we do need to work with your technology department so that we can place that on the website and announce it, Mike, and announce it accordingly. But we think that's a doable thing, and that's right next week. And I don't know if President Pro Tem Ahmad was thinking about the speed of some of these things that we're doing. I know that, I think it was you that had gone through the process previously, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. And we are in a little bit of a crunch, as you understand that. And so that's part of the reason that we're trying to advance some of these dates as quickly as possible. Not for the sake of just speed, but rather making sure that we are prepared to do those key milestones accordingly and have the opportunity to advertise and recruit and so on.
So I just have a question about those dates, because they mostly fall during our spring break. So would the reminders, how would the reminders then be sent out if maybe our principals are not actually?
Good question. I don't know if you folks maintain, for example, something like a Connect Ed. Parent support or parent square rather. That would be certainly one way during that off week, if you will, during your spring break, that they could receive that information directly. And the instructions, we would be able to share with you what that instruction looks like, reads like, if you will, in terms of the spring break versus the week that you're still on board here.
1 week of spring break,
Yes.
Yeah.
and that starts.
Monday.
Monday. Okay.
If we were to push it back
Yeah.
to 31st at least, just 2 days, because then if
So
the
people are-
schedule goes, the Friday is 31st. That at least gives 1 week that people were off, but then 1 week then everyone's back, because a full week chance to respond.
Let's do
Is
that.
that okay? I mean, I don't think 2 days is gonna.
No,
push
it absolutely is great suggestion.
I mean, worst case scenario, I think even to the 3rd, only because it gives you an extra weekend as well.
Yeah, that might bump in, the third might bump into some other issues, but if I may, then I would suggest that March 20th through the 31st would be the survey timeframe. Again, Korean, Spanish, and English.
Yes.
Great. Okay, moving on to number 6. We want to make sure that we are advertising in the AXA publication as quickly as possible. We've already set up the opportunity through our executive assistant to have that run on March 20th and March 27th. What it primarily will do, including our website, is indicate to anybody who might be interested that this position is open and that we're beginning to recruit. We don't have a position description yet. That will come with some time, of course,
Mhm.
but at least we will let people know that there is an opening here in Buena Park Elementary School District. So March 20th and 27th would be the AXA. Stakeholder input sessions. Not only that survey that would take place, but now we're talking about when we would be available for stakeholder input, either personally here or through Zoom. We'd like to suggest April 3rd, 4th, and 5th. That's a 3-day period of time. We may not need all 3 days, excuse me, dependent upon the response from the stakeholder input groups. But April 3rd, 4th, and 5th would be ideal for us. And it really doesn't involve the board at all. So there's no time that you need with us during that time frame. But we would set that schedule up with Aaron. And again, we would determine whether or not we need to be here or whether it be via Zoom. Okay. Closed session date for application review. This is about a 2.5 hour meeting where we would meet with you to review all of the applications. The trustees are going to be provided a portal where you're going to be able to see all of the applications. Whether it's a site principal who might be applying, or a deputy superintendent, or a seated superintendent, you'll be able to see all of those applications. We would do that prior to this meeting, and that particular meeting, we believe, could be held on May 3rd or 4th. It's a Wednesday or a Thursday. That's where we would come to you, and you would begin to review all of the applications along with us and select which candidates are going to be moving forward for an interview. May 4th is better. Okay. Okay.
The 4th is, we have a-
Would it be a morning or evening?
That is a closed session item. I don't know, Mike, if you need to be here necessarily, unless you think there's some protocols that you need to take care of.
Well, for the Zoom meeting.
open it and then important help.
And you're somebody gonna do it. I answered.
How would May 3rd work, ladies and gentlemen? How would May 3rd work?
You can do that.
I can do third. I have to take a look because I have a medical procedure coming up, so I gotta see if I need to quarantine or not. If not, third will work for me.
Yes, sir.
I'm good with the third.
Are we talking an evening meeting?
Yes, typically 5 o'clock, a couple of hours. If the board preferred to do it earlier, 4 o'clock perhaps, that would be fine. 6 o'clock is fine. I'm just thinking in terms of your own time frame.
I couldn't do 4, I could do 5 maybe.
You can do 5.
Yeah, 5 would be fine.
May 3rd.
On the
5
third.
o'clock.
5 on the third.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah. The closed session date for the interview. We are suggesting Saturday, May 20th. And that would be an all-day item where we most likely would have an orientation starting maybe at 8 a.m. Starting the interviews perhaps at 8:30, 9 a.m. That is going to be dependent, the amount of time rather, is going to be dependent upon the number of candidates that you have selected to be interviewed. Ballpark figure, if I may put it that way, 5, perhaps 6. It's a long day. We'll have lunch together. We'll have a continental breakfast together. We'll start the process. I haven't mentioned the questions yet, but those come later, where we would draft some questions depending upon the position description for the board to review. However, that Saturday, May 20th, is typically ideal in terms of a Saturday, no week commitments, if you will, or job commitments, frees you up a little bit.
How is that for everyone? Saturday, May 20th.
I might not be able to because I do work on the weekends.
That's right, we do.
Um,
I could ask for the day, but I'll have to update you guys if I could.
Some boards have decided to do those on weekdays as well. In this case, Friday, May 19th is also available. But again, it's dependent upon your work schedule.
I couldn't do a weekday just because of my pickups and drop offs, but the 20th is okay for me if it works for.
I know when you might be able to find out.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask them.
Maybe like next week or something, maybe 2 weeks, we'll find out.
Yeah, in about 2 weeks.
Can we get you back to you on that?
Yes, sir.
Between the 19th, 20th. Worst case, yeah, okay, 20th.
We look at the 20th,
20.
Saturday.
20th. 5 candidates would take about how many hours?
Oh, it's usually from 9 a.m., let's say 8:30 a.m. till about 4-ish.
For 5 candidates.
And then there's further deliberations on typically, Mr. Chong, Mr. Chang, your final 2 candidates. And that is a different process that we'll go through during that time period.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We just completed the Westminster interviews and it was 8:30 start time. And we concluded about 5:30 with 5 candidates.
The next bullet is the consideration or location of the interview. If I may, Mrs. Ahmad, was the previous interviews that you recall held here at the district office?
They were here. at the
Okay. If that's fine, we can do certainly the interviews, most likely here in this room.
It does mention like maybe venues away. Is there a reason to want to maybe do it away?
Generally, it depends on whether or not the trustees require or are asking for any further, what I might call confidentiality. And sometimes it's easier to be at a venue, for example, like a local hotel, because they can provide food service and restaurant service, that kind of thing. There are times in larger school districts where they have to spread out a little bit more. It just depended upon the district and the trustees. But if you've done it here previously, I would suggest it here again.
We just did the last one in the district office. It
Was it a Saturday? Is there any issue with Saturday being there? That's fine.
It was fine, yeah. We did it on a Saturday as well.
Okay.
The next bullet has to do with the validation process. We suggest that the board following their that's not approval, but well, once you select someone, we would suggest that you have a validation visit to that person, to his or her current school district, to verify and confirm and speak to some of the employees that they have worked with. It's not required, but it's certainly something that I think is kind of a due diligence type of thing. Generally speaking, if it's 2 board members, of course, it's fine. If it's beyond 2, then you'll need to agendize it.
Question on that. So if it's a sitting soup, if it's a assistant soup, any of those layers, what are we looking to validate? Like, just how the district is running over there, or like questioning, just interviewing some of their colleagues? Kind of thing?
Typically, you're going to want to speak to another trustee of that particular district, perhaps the executive assistant or secretary of that person, that particular employee. If it's an assistant superintendent, you're going to want to speak to his or her supervisor, the superintendent, perhaps union representation, certificated and classified. And so that, I think, provides a little bit more validation and confirmation of your decision and choice.
That's right.
Because the superintendent is not your superintendent until you approve him or her at a regular school board meeting. It cannot be done at a special board meeting.
So we wouldn't have a meeting till June 12th.
June 12th,
We're going by the dates that we're doing
We're
right
gonna
now.
go, yeah, it does have to be a regularly scheduled board meeting.
It does have to be.
For the validation, or
No,
No.
no. For
No,
the
confirmation.
contract approval.
Yeah.
For the approval part of it.
when would that fall under that timeline of
it
when we're looking
could
to approval?
probably be your June 12th board meeting.
But if not, it would be July, but no, we want June 28th.
We don't meet in July.
No, we don't. We don't meet in July. Could it be on a special board meeting?
Cannot.
No, it needs to be a regular. June 12th or June 28th are our 2
This is
choices.
why we should have stated it.
If you do 12th, then the validation would have to happen between 20th and the 12th. In that 2 weeks, a week, 10 or 12 days.
It's doable. It's tight, but it is doable. And some boards have, decided that they don't really need the validation, but they feel really strongly about it. And in other cases, they feel really strongly about the decision, but they just wanna, be able to talk to people who've actually worked with the day after day. So it's, we always had validation visits before COVID. After COVID, it was, it just depends on if the board wants to do it or not.
Could we do like a Zoom that way?
Yes, in fact, there were several that were done via Zoom, and it was just their board members and
Right.
their board members having a conversation about the candidate. on Zoom.
Right.
Just that one more layer of validation that I think speaks volumes about you as trustees as well.
I think it'd work with the 12th. Like, just do it, if we can do it at Zoom, maybe doing 20 inch.
No, I don't have an issue with the validation. I think we'll definitely find a time that'll work because
Yeah.
that's a long period of time. My just thing is like, if we're doing the interview on the 20th, then we probably would have decided after those interviews by the 20th.
Right. By the end
It'll
of
be
that
a
day.
long time for, school will end and like, staff will be going away. I would have liked for them to kind of know before they went on summer break. Who
Of who the person is.
Yeah.
But
who
we
the
can't
person-
say that anyway until the 12th, right?
I know. Well, I'm
Right.
saying if we had a second meeting in May, we probably could. Just saying.
Not necessarily, you
Just
never
saying.
know. Just kidding.
If you want to, let all the staff and parents know to check the district website, and you can push out a email to everybody to, as with your parent square and your emails to all of your staff, because they're gonna wanna know.
Mhm.
They're gonna wanna know as soon as possible.
Yeah.
It's just human nature.
Right.
So, you can
You
still.
guys are gonna be hounded for like 3 weeks, basically.
Well,
June 12th board meeting, come to the June 12th board meeting.
Yeah. The other option is you can declare who your finalist is pending board approval. So that's another option that you might want to consider at that point in time. so that there is information provided out to your public and to your stakeholders, to your teachers and parents.
The press release. The
A press release,
will
right.
Go out.
Mhm.
When is the last day of school?
Third,
So before June third, a press release could. go
June
out.
second, actually. June 2nd.
And
Yeah.
that could be after the validation, Zoom or whatever you decide that you'd like to have. And that way your folks, all your folks, staff and community can see via the press release right before school is out.
And that's often done. Again, the wording being,
Pending
you know,
board.
the finalist
Pending.
pending
Board
board approval.
approval.
So that still creates that confirmation opportunity pending board approval. Let's see.
People are very anxious.
Yeah. I would say, though, that if on Saturday, May 20th, the interviews that following week, it's contingent upon typically the board president, your legal counsel, and the individual you selected to negotiate the contract accordingly. And we can help with that aspect. And that typically, should your legal counsel know ahead of time, when your interviews are taking place, they're somewhat geared up and ready to do that. One of the things we will require, and it's down below there, is we'd like to have a copy of Ramon's contract so that we can see that as well. But generally, kind of gearing up for that with your legal counsel, your board president, and the individual who's negotiating. And what we do, I'm jumping a little bit here, is your two finalists, let's say it's two finalists, unless it's one that you select, but if you're two finalists, we will ask them to fill out what's called a parameters worksheet, indicating to us and to the trustees what is their compensation expectation, what is their health and welfare benefit expectation, technology, mileage, vacation days, so that you'll know ahead of time, should you be interested in altering that or negotiating that, and that's part of the process.
And we'll ask you way before those candidates fill out that contract parameter worksheet,
Mhm.
what your range, is.
Mhm.
What is your salary range? Because we want to be very clear with all the candidates right up front. So that way we don't get to the 11th hour and then there's this dispute over salary. So we want to make sure that we get,
That would be on the application, correct?
pardon me,
That would be on the application.
not the application, because it'll only be filled out by those that you select for, interview. But we will need the salary range before you select candidates, because we'll tell all the candidates, all the applications, all the applicants, they'll always ask them.
That's what I mean, like,
Right.
so that you'll need to know that when they're applying, because some people might apply and might not apply.
That's exactly,
Okay.
that's exactly right, but not everyone will fill out the whole
Yes, okay.
detailed
Yeah.
contract parameter sheet, but we do need to know what the salary is, because that, of all the different pieces of the contract, it is the one piece that, that everyone wants to know ahead of time. Otherwise, they may feel like, you know what, that's not gonna work for me.
And is
If
that
they're
something?
Sitting superintendent somewhere else, it's gonna be a pay cut, then,
Mhm.
they may love this community, want to serve here, but it's gonna be a pay cut for the family, then, that would work.
And for example, if someone's coming from Northern California, there might be fees related to their requesting rather relocation fees or relocation cost. They might end up asking the trustees, theoretically, I would like $10,000 to move my family to this immediate area. But all of those items and all of those question marks, we will work with you with respect to that.
So the clarification is if we board approve the superintendent's contract, that's just for that contract of that person. So in this case, it's a new person, it's a new negotiation, it's a new step. It's not for like policy that we set it as like, this is the range of the superintendent's contract. That was that person's, the new person is now whatever is negotiated or we discussed to
You're-
be
you're
that.
Contracting with a new person.
So it could be whatever we would start.
Right, and I think what would be helpful is as we begin to contemplate, or you folks begin to contemplate and consider what that salary range might be, we have available for you some comparison and contrast opportunities,
Terrible.
comparables. What might be La Habra making? What might be Lowell Joint making? What might be Fullerton City School District making? So that there's some comparability there. I think it's helpful for you to see that as well.
And I'm assuming that's why you're asking for Ramon's previous contract, so you can kind of gauge it based on what it was and what the parameters may be for the new
Yes.
contract.
That's exactly correct. We're down to number 7 at this point in time. In terms of candidate recruitment, I think Sandy and I wanted to emphasize, and Sandy certainly opportunity as well. We have EdCal, we have the AXA, the California Association of School Administrators. It's going to be in their EdCal and be on their website. We also, Leadership Associates, will blast this information out to approximately 800
I
individuals.
think we have more than 800 subscribers now to our website.
Right.
So, and EdCal is, EdCal, and we're really grateful to say our website also are the prime locations for folks who are looking for positions. They're always, and there's the EdCal hard copy publication, but then there's also.
We get that one.
Online, Career Connect online, so, we'll put it in all of those.
Correct. And of course, that position description will really create the recruitment tool for us in terms of that match and that fit. So that's really very, very important, obviously.
Just a little side note, as a team of leadership associates, we meet every other Tuesday morning via Zoom and help each other with recruiting and vetting, just to make sure there's a good fit. But as, in addition to that, twice a year, because we're all over the state, twice a year we gather in person to continually fine tune our processes. We want to always have this process be really, really top notch for you and have an outstanding result to bring you really top quality candidates for you to choose from. So, what we did 5 years ago is not as awesome as what we're doing. You know, we're just continuing.
It's very different. I'm gonna tell you, it's very different than last time and it looks much easier and much better. Yeah.
Well, we just as you as an organization are always wanting to embrace continual improvement. You want every one of your teachers and staff members to continually improve.
Mhm.
We do the same thing.
We have already received some calls from interested parties, by the way. So the word is out that this is an open opportunity. It'll increase even more so with the EdCal advertisement and with the blasting out. And people will go to our website, of course, and see that there's an opening according to position description, not quite ready, of course, obviously. But at the same time, people know that that's pending and they'll be anxious to see what that looks like.
What a wonderful conversation with Ramon, and he just things your praises every single one of you so loudly, and just the work that all of you together with the staff and the physical community. It's going to be a draw.
We're gonna make your job easier.
You know what? You're absolutely right.
That's what I.
Because honestly, the two things the candidates ask when they
How's
are
the
searching, they want to know, number one, what's the board like? Most importantly, number two, what's the salary range? It's what matters most to them because, you know, if the salary is awesome, but they've got a board that's really problematic, not worth the hard pay. Whatever the salary is.
Yep.
And of course, as you well know, that relationship between the board and the superintendent is critical. That relationship is, it's the closest thing to a marriage that I've ever discovered when I was a superintendent. And I've been married for 50 years, so as I twitch here a little bit there, Sandy. No, I'm joking. My point is that it really is, in order for this district to succeed, in order for the students of this district to succeed, the relationship between the superintendent and board or the trustees is really critical. Okay, getting to that, number 8, we've discussed a little bit about the contract parameters. It's to be completed by the candidates that are invited for the interview. Number 9, where we will receive, as Mr. Frutos mentioned, the copy of the superintendent's current contract, Aaron. At this point in time, number 10, any clarification or questions that you might have before we begin to ask you what you desire most in the next superintendent? Any questions or clarification?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So when you mentioned on the 20, no, that's the interview, the day that we like application review 4th or 3rd. When you say application review, are you bringing forward all that applied? There like 40 people applied, all applications will be brought forward. We can discuss which ones we want to move forward with, or is it kind of paper screen first down to then.
Get all,
You'll receive all of them, typically 3 to 4 days ahead of time before that meeting. That allows you at your leisure to be able to review all of the applications. However, most likely what we will do though is provide you tiers. Here's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 3 probably very candidly has no business desiring a superintendent seat in this particular school district. Tier 2 might be on the cusp. They're right. They're probably ready, but not quite as good or as ready or meeting the match and the fit as your tier 1 folks. So
and we don't determine those tiers until after we've
Right.
completed this really
all of our vetting,
labor intensive checking of references. And we'll check all the references that they listed, that they will check other people who we know, people who know them. So we can really understand what these folks are like, and if they are truly a match for what you say you need and what your community says you need and value, and I'll leave it.
yeah, I think the vetting process is labor intensive. We really do a tremendous amount of checking on these
But it's
individuals.
hugely important. The community engagement is very labor intensive, huge part of it, and the reference checking, vetting. You know, it's our bread and butter. It's, because then we know that we feel very, very, very confident that we're bringing to folks, and that's why why you hopefully have chosen that, because you know that we're gonna give you quality product and quality process.
This is going to sound odd, but we know people who have baggage, who may want to use this as a springboard. Longevity is so important. The research obviously says that. And so, we are always conscientious of who might be applying. I'll give you an example of a recent superintendent search where I was able to find out that this particular person had applied for Washington, Florida, school districts in Washington, Florida, Arizona, California, Rhode Island. So he was not part of the pool to be considered simply because you could sense and see that there wasn't really what I'm going to call a dedicated point in where he'd want to be, what he'd like to do, so on and so forth. So that's just an example of the vetting process. Yeah. We also found out that the person had been separated from the school district for a year. So we won't bring just the finest to you in terms of it. Any other questions or clarification items from number 10?
Yeah, so I actually have a question about that application review that day. As you said, it's gonna be like divided into tiers. That day, do we have to kind of get like, let's say like, for example, like our top 10 or top 5, is there like a way that we need to narrow it down to continue with the interviews or?
That's exactly right. This is what we'll do is, again, you'll see all of the applications. We will have already broken it down into tiers of the best match and fit. So you might have 25 applicants for this position, but we may only feel that through our referencing and vetting process and the position description, that these are the top 5 that we would provide you to concentrate on or contemplate on. The next 5 might not have the same personal or professional skill set or experiences. And the bottom group, the tier 3, are typically people who are on a trajectory perhaps to become a superintendent at some point in time in their career, but they're not quite ready yet. And that information that we arrive at is done through that vetting and reference checking process.
An example that might be helpful is if there were the last elementary district I did, there were 9 people in tier 1. So the board came to a unanimous decision on 5. Because they didn't all agree exactly on all of those 9. So they picked, actually they picked 4 and they brought 1 up from 1A. Because there were so many people who were really, really good. So they pulled up 1 from 1A. He didn't get the position, but he had been from the community and they really were interested in. He didn't quite have the same level of breadth and depth of experience as the others, but they really wanted to see him, so they brought him up. So it's completely up to you. You can bring up whoever you want. They bring somebody up. It's your very one. It's your decision. But we just try to make sure it's a little easier for you, and you'll get through the electronic portal. All of the applicants, all of them. And then we'll go into depth with, when we need to do the candidate review, to give you all the details of the things that we've heard about these folks from a variety of different sources.
So if a board member has a question about somebody who's in tier 3, we have all of that vetted and reference checking information available for you. We can answer any question that you might have regarding that individual, whether it's tier 3, tier 2, or tier 1. But Sandy's right. You may want to boil it down. If we were to bring you 7 people, you may want to boil it down to 4. That you folks feel are the best match and fit.
I have a clarification on that too. Question on, you said after the interview process, you sometimes move forward 2 finalists. So,
Generally, we have found that trustees will move forward 2 finalists to bring back
The second round. of
a
interviews
second
is
round of
taken.
interview questions.
oh, so you're saying the 5, so the interview process is actually you interview everyone once, then you land on 2, and then you interview again later that day. Then, so end of the day, you'll leave with 1 candidate as final, but you're saying in the interview process, you trim
You
it
tell
down.
them to hang
Oh,
out,
okay.
kind of stay nearby,
Yes.
and then
That's
if they get
exactly
a
right.
call,
Yeah.
they come back.
That's exactly correct. You may interview, let's say, 5 individuals. We tell those 5 individuals, go get a Starbucks, go get lunch, whatever the case might be available in case you make it as a finalist, where the board will bring you back for another set of questions. The first set of questions are standardized. You have to stay with those particular sets of questions that we are going to draft and you're going to ask. The second set of questions, should you bring back 2 people, are less formal. They might be more like, tell us a little bit more about the strategy you use to reach our special education students with regards to their student achievement. Or you
It might be
mentioned
follow-up questions.
follow-up
when you're
questions.
Interviewing the first round. You might have a desire to go deeper on, on the follow-up interview. And with regard to the questions, we'll draft them for you based on what we hear from you and all of your community and the community, what matters most to this community. So that way the questions are tailor-made for Winter Park. But then when we give you the draft, then you look at it and you tell us, if you want us to add a little something, change something, throw something out, add something else in. So in the end, it's, we're doing this work for you, but you will have control over exactly how you want that to be.
Thank you.
Okay. We'd like to move on. Sandy has her laptop here. And we would want now to hear from each board member what those characteristics, those traits, skill sets, personal and professional experiences that you desire most in your next superintendent. We sometimes try to create kind of a catalyst for this by saying, we desire a superintendent who, and then you might use some adjectives, has integrity, is a courageous leader, is an instructional leader, has been at the district office level. So whatever comes to mind, we're going to capture.
You can think in terms of personal qualities and professional skill set. So it could be a variety of different things, whatever. And this process is what we're gonna use with all of the folks that you've asked us to meet with, either in person or via Zoom, so the community.
So one of the things that helps is to contemplate where you're at now and where you might be in the immediate future. Are there some challenges that the district is facing that might take a particular skill set from a leader? So for example, I just finished a search where the district is contemplating a very large bond referendum. They wanted and desired somebody who had bond referendum financial experience. Another school district really required a very strong instructional leader because the opportunity gap and the achievement gap has been lacking. And so in terms of that, I just wanted to kind of create that landscape. What might be right around the corner and kind of skills that your next superintendent may need. So with that,
So maybe before we
Yes,
get
please.
started on that, there are 3 different components. One, we'll start with asking you to share with us what are the skills and qualities, characteristics that are most important to find a part of the leader. And then the second question is, what are the district's strengths? What are your most proud of with regard to your district? And lastly, what are the district challenges? What is the new superintendent need to know going into it? The challenges that you all face this.
And I was only going to mention, once we establish all of this information, including the survey, we will provide the board an executive summary with all of the information pertaining to what we heard on the survey, what we heard from stakeholders. And it's a great report, if you will, almost like a WASC accreditation report that provides information for not only you, but for the new leader that you've selected as well. Typically, a new leader will create a 90 or 100-day plan that's in conjunction with the board's goals and core goals and ideas and thoughts. And so to reflect on that instrument, that report, that executive summary is a good tool for you as well. So if I may, I'm going to go ahead and start with our board president. Sandy will capture that information.
All right, well, looking at desired qualities, characteristics, I'll take that first bullet. Our goal is to ignite students' passion for learning. And so I think we want a leader who has can be inspiring. We're looking for someone who is a skilled communicator. Because we have quite a diverse school district. And one of the things I really like that we offer choice to our families and our students. And so I want a leader who wants that also. And respects the diversity in our area. Okay. I think we also need an instructional leader because we do have achievement gaps in our district. And, we're looking for ways to improve that. We are looking also, well, like I say, when I say skilled communication, because there's so many groups that he needs to be able to work with. We have our certificated groups, our classified groups. We've got our people with the city that we work with. Of course, we've got our families that we work with. I'm sorry, are you writing all this down? I was just giving examples of why we need it.
She's pretty good at this.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'll let me narrow that down. We're looking for someone who respects others and is a good listener.
We can circle back should there be some other thoughts.
Okay. Thank you.
So are we just doing right now
Just the characteristics. We'll jump into the strengths and the challenges in just a few minutes.
So, for me, just personally, I'm gonna speak for myself when I say I was a teacher, so I was in the classroom, so I know how important it is for the superintendent to have been in the classroom. So for me, I would really like someone that has actually been in the classroom and not someone that has spent the whole time in the office. I feel like once you've been in the classroom, you can really understand what students need, what staff need. So for me, that's a big, because I just feel like it helps me so much right now too. And even when people talk to me, I could literally picture myself in that classroom because I was. So that for me is just very important. Also, I know a lot, you're gonna hear a lot of similarities. We want a people person, someone that everyone is comfortable talking to. And I know this is gonna sound dumb when I say it, but I'm like, I swear I have a master's degree, but I'd really like someone that's street smart and not just book smart. Because you can have all the books and you can have all the knowledge, but if you don't know how to communicate that or how to actually like implement that, it means nothing. So, a higher degree would be great, but I'm not looking, I want to make sure that it's a person that, knows all the ins and outs of everything and not just can tell me what this book states or what the theory states. For me, communication has just been our biggest thing, and just a good communicator and a person that's able to communicate with multiple different personalities and you know, and is able to just, be clear.
Let's see. Let's see. No, okay.
I'll go next. I think for me, so far President Shed and Ms. Ahmad have mentioned a lot, but transparency is very important. We need a cooperative superintendent that can cooperate with everybody at all times, be adaptable to any type of change or circumstances within the day or his role. A good instructional leader. And I do agree with Ms. Ahmad. I'd like to have somebody that's been in the classroom in various capacities, whether it's been a teacher, whether he's been a principal, because it's a good mix of skill sets to have, because you're gonna eventually be, you'd want to be a good leader, right? Be able to coach others in the process. People skills are very important. I think a relationship builder, a community builder is also another, those two are important. Let's see. And passion is big, as stated, you know, passion is in our mission statement, so yes, they have to be passionate about what they're doing. I would like to see somebody bilingual in our district, knowing that we have a Korean, Spanish, in our community, so somebody bilingual would be, of importance, in my opinion. That's what I have for right now, but I know I can come up with some more as we go around. So I'll pass it over to Mrs. Strada.
Yeah, well, as the other board members have said, I think I do agree, someone who is communicative and who could have these relationships with their community. Because that's really one of the most important things, is them being able to speak to members of the community and come to a consensus. And then also, one thing is compassionate, because not only are they kind of a figure for the district, they have to be able to be compassionate towards the students and to be able to have a heart in this district and to really truly care for the betterment of students, staff, and parents, as well as other staff within the district. I think, as Trustee Futo said, passionate is really another most important thing. They have to have the heart in this, and they have to truly care about what they do. And then also someone who will want to actually get to know the community. And I think Trustee Ahmad did point out somebody who has been in education before, either principal, a previous superintendent, or maybe like a teacher, but somebody who will really want to know the community and who will really act as part of the community. And that's pretty much what I have for now, but I think I really do echo the sentiments of the rest of the board in that really a people person is something that we really truly need in order to have someone connect with this community.
Thank you.
That's it.
We want a unicorn. Just kidding. I think for me, it's very similar. The 4 C's is probably the big thing I think of. I think our superintendents know how to be a critical thinker, because there's a lot of problems that come daily and how to navigate that, like them to know how to be a good collaborator. And I think they all expanded on some of those things, collaboration among our associations, collaboration among our community, collaboration among, with us, a board. So collaboration, communication, knowing how to communicate to all partners, as well as, you know, everyone that's involved, like they mentioned already, and creativity. I think a lot of critical thinking is connected to how they can creatively get through certain situations. So how that works, I'd like to see a strong instructional leader as well. Somebody with diverse backgrounds and experiences. So diversity in terms of what they've been involved in their personal connections, as well as professional, and within the communities of what they were involved in. And then connectedness. Yeah. Yeah, backgrounds and kind of experiences. They have diverse experiences in the communities that they worked with or for, as well as their personal background, because I think that plays into their qualities and characteristics, as well as their professional backgrounds and experiences, that there's a lot of diversity in what they've been doing and what they've been involved in. I think that will tell about that person for us. And then I'm not sure there's quality, that's all save it for strengths and challenges, but those are the characteristics, at least, that I think. It seems we're very similar. I mean, I ditto everything they said, I think, to say in different words, but yeah.
One thing that I'd like to suggest or provide, and that is the opportunity, should there be another thought or another characteristic that you might be considering, please email me directly. And we will make sure that we add that to the laundry list of things that are being discussed. But if I may, Madam President, we'll go back to you. And is there any other characteristics that you'd like to add?
Well, I had written down innovative. I think he said creative, it's the same type of thing.
And may I ask clarification on the understands and values the choices we offer to our students? So when somebody's reading that as a possible applicant, what meaning should they make? What kind of choices are you talking about?
Well, we have educational choices. We have different focuses at each site. And so the kids can transfer within the district depending on what their passion is. Mhm. And I think
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to underscore what you said about a person who's taught in the classroom. I know some positions, you need less than 5 years. I don't see how you can really learn enough about being in the classroom with less than 5 years of education. So we don't want somebody who's just been in like 2 or 3 years.
Correct.
Okay, so it does make a huge difference.
Real critical to TK8 landscaper situation.
We agree wholeheartedly. We were both superintendents, but having been in that classroom for a good number of years, you never ever forget that, and you understand exactly what our teachers need, and they are, when the classified staff, you cannot do the work without classified staff, it's impossible. But the teachers are actually doing the most important work in the whole district. I used to always tell my staff, it's like the teachers are like the race car drivers, and myself and everybody else who's not a classroom teacher, every classified staff member, every administrator, they're all like the big crew. You know, they need us, but we're not actually driving. We've got to be 100% supportive of what's happening in the classroom, because that's what the kids are learning. So we understand what you're talking about.
And certainly those relationships that Mr. Frutos brought forward as well, critical, being visible, being in the classroom, understanding. Anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I actually thought of two more things.
Please.
So my first thing would just, it's the word local, but it doesn't mean local. So to me, I'm not interested in a superintendent from Arkansas applying for our district. I feel like we just have a different, we don't want to sit there teaching them how it is, I just want someone that already kind of knows what's happening in our area and understands all the undertones and everything. So we don't want to bring someone in that we're still going to sit there and train them how to live in California, or, I don't know, for me, are we?
I agree. I wouldn't want anybody out of state or even up north. It'd have to be local, down south, that already knows the community and's been involved in our community in some ways or forms, or in communication with, our previous superintendent in regards to how we function here.
Yeah, I think as long as they check what we're looking for, I mean, location plays into your background. So I think somebody that knows how to navigate, and if you're gonna create relationships, I think you have to have connections. So if somebody's connected is important, positive and negative. So if you know they're negative and we don't want you, but positive connections brings about the more building of relationships. So we would like to make sure that's a focal point. I think I agree with that.
Okay,
But
and then
I
my,
don't think you want to preclude anybody from state. If I may, Mr. Frutos, there's some excellent people in Northern California who have had experiences of communities such as Buena Park or Southern California. And they may have been here previously, and they've gone up their trajectory of work, and now they're desiring to come back as well. So, I mean.
Yeah, I don't think we have to discriminate against location. I think if they apply, they should apply. It's not that they should.
no, of course they
apply.
could apply, and we
Right.
won't stop anyone from applying, but I wouldn't be interested in someone that has all their superintendent experience outside of the state. Whereas if they're in this state, even if they're in northern, I feel like it's the same thing. We're all under the same, going through the same rules and bylaws of the state of California. For me, it would be a whole other layer of training that they would need to know the laws of California. Like, Why would we do that to ourselves?
Would it be accurate to say is familiar with and values a community like ours?
I think that's good.
I think that makes more sense in a way. Cause then
I mean,
to
yeah,
Darla's point, I think she sees it more like a flight risk, right? They're only gonna be here short term, kind of be a stepping stone and then move on to the next thing, right? So,
Because consistency and stability of leadership is
Mhm.
huge for the.
right.
Longevity.
So I can see to her point on that. So, yeah, we wouldn't want to be, this is just not a stepping stone. We want to be somebody that wants to integrate themselves here in this community, in our district and, you know, lead forth our mission that we have set forth with our board and our community.
like we know all the governor updates, we know all, all that. So if you're still teaching that to someone, that really takes away from their time that could be spent in the classrooms or in the schools. For me, I mean, that
Yeah,
would,
generally, we have found that LCFF, LCAP, some of the policies and laws that we have, particularly financially, are a little bit of a hurdle occasionally.
yes.
So I understand that point.
My second one is the word available. So someone that is available. And I don't want to also make it seem like I'm tightening the circle a lot more, but a person that really will give 100% of their time to the district. And I know how hard of a job it is because you'll get phone calls at one, in the middle of the night or, stuff that happened in the schools. Someone that I know will be there if we do get a call like that, not someone that has a lot of other things going on in their life that might get in that way. And also if they're living like an hour and a half away and, we had a break-in or we had a fire at, God forbid, if, I'd like to know that the superintendent is available and will be able to take care of it.
Proximity has become a big factor in trustees' decisions and determinations of the candidates that they've reviewed. And that has become even a bigger factor, particularly post-COVID and so on. So we certainly take that down.
Would it be accurate to say is available and will give full attention to when
Yeah.
I like that only because I agree with you. At the same time, you live on the backs of the people who came before you, right? There's people that have strengths and weaknesses on different things. So some had to build continued relationship across the district or in the community. Then there's some that have to focus on the internal to make sure you build up the certificated or the teaching or the instructional, and then some build out the classified. Like there's strengths and weaknesses in all. So I think available is good, but availability depending on need of our community. But the highlight of what you just said, I think, is that they're available for the Buena Park community need, our school district need, and they're available for anything
Yes.
related to that. I like that.
This is an excellent roadmap that's happening, what you're actually developing,
Right.
designing. Anyone else added to the characteristics?
Yeah, I have a few more. To the availability, I want to add reliability to it. Right, that's a big one. Also jot down an organizational awareness, making sure that they're aware internally within their cabinet or anywhere in the district. Whether it's associations or I wanted to understand. So there's a cordial relationship amongst everybody. So I think that's another one. A visionary, we mentioned some key points, but visionary would be important. But in it also an instinctive motivator, right? If something were to come up and we would need that person to be that inspiration in that moment for any scenario, good or bad, right? And then the other one, the last two would be teamwork and most importantly, self-confidence. They need to be confident in what they're doing, because if they're not confident, then doesn't work out. Everything else falls below the cracks after that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Pugliese.
I do have one more too. I was gonna say, again, we threw out the whole dictionary, but adaptable. So it could be intermixed with flexible, but I know you come with passion, you come with conviction, but at the same time, knowing how to pivot and adapt to knowing the climate of what they're walking into.
Yeah, someone. I think-
Somebody said
was
that?
it You?
I think I mentioned it.
Okay,
Was it, okay, it was right here. Yes.
okay, good.
Great minds think alike.
Not so great here.
But even though, like Mr. Johnson, we're throwing a lot out there, it's only because we do want the best. We don't want anybody just stepping in business side. So it is gonna be a lot of work, but just like if anybody as a board expect, what we do, the work, we also expect in return from our superintendent.
very, very helpful because clarity is a gift. Clarity is kindness, you know, the applicants need to know what the expectations are. And we need to know what the expectations are, so that way, as we're doing all this vetting, and it's amazing what we hear from people. It's not always 100% roses.
I'm
So,
sure.
you know, so they say, well, you know what, they really have had a track record of not demonstrating clarity, and, you know, they're not clear with their to each other, they don't communicate frequently enough, or they, you know, irritate people right and left instead of really, they don't understand what it means to be a servant leader. You know, so it's interesting when we call these references, you know, that's why we say, okay, you know what? They're not tier one. They're not matching what this board community are saying.
And generally, of course, we're calling and talking to any applicant. We're reaching out to them as well. So we're trying to get a sense of them, where they've been, what they've done, where they want to go. And matching that up with the position description, of course, is really, really very, very critical.
It's a good point, David. We kind of do our own little interview first. Talk to them, get to know them, have a sense of what they're really like. We have multiple conversations with them throughout the whole process.
Any other characteristics? I think we're going to go to strengths now, and we'll start with Madam President.
I think the strength of our district is our diversity.
Mhm.
And it gives us a rich tapestry, like a rich culture. That's something I really appreciate. Challenges.
Are we doing challenges yet?
You want to stick with strengths?
Sure, if you don't mind.
We'll stick with strengths right down there.
Oh, okay.
Go back.
Okay,
That's
Great.
for me the
Okay.
best.
thank you.
I had diversity on there as well, but, our strengths right now are, I feel like, to be honest, are our staff. We have great staff, great people that work hard, and I feel like we're this hidden gem that no one really knows about, but we know about. That's why we're so excited.
People know us.
We're always
People
hyped
know
up
us.
about. And so someone that understands that would be great because it is a strength. A lot of people maybe would hear Buena Park, oh, you know, small district, but that's a strength. I feel like our size is a strength because you're not dealing with 12 schools or 20 schools or, you know. I feel like that's a big, strong point. Like change can happen faster in our district because of our size. So that's a strength for us. And I feel like right now we're at a good place financially. That should be a strength. We're not like, you know, losing money or in a hole or in debt or anything like that. And we do have a bond that we still have, you know, the last issue and stuff. So, I mean, there's still stuff that we, you know, it's exciting stuff that could happen. So those are, I feel like, our strengths.
Those?
So far, everybody's been that I had in mind too, but I think we're financially sound, but I think visibility, I think we're very visible within what we're doing, especially out in the community. So I think that's been a strength, aside of what's been said as far as diversity. I do agree with staff. I think we have a hardworking staff and we do appreciate what they do. Whether it's, you know, from janitors to, you know, the associations, to the teachers, to anybody that is employed by our district, is well appreciated by us.
I think they have really highlighted what's the most important of our district as diversity, and then, as they said, we're really good financially right now. And our staff really is one of the most important parts of our district. And also how they've moved forward and sort of elevated our educational level, and how each teacher really does pay attention to one student and really does help them elevate. And just walking into schools and just seeing how higher our education has been, even for TK students, is really one of our biggest strengths, and just how high our education level is even at the youngest.
Certainly sense the pride.
Yeah, I'll start with staff. They're very, what we describe, what we want from our superintendent. I think our staff represents that. Very, very adaptable, resilient. So I think somebody walking in would know that they have support among our staff, our teachers, our executive admins, our classified across the board. So staff is huge. I mean, if you don't have the people, you can't do the work. So you got that. I feel like we have very strong programs instructionally. The things that we've been investing in hearing about with Readers and Writers Workshop, CGI, different connections with Apple and technology innovation. We have a lot of different strong instructional programs that I think somebody walking in would be surprised to see or would be pleased to see that we're not like a small district that doesn't know anything going on. We're like probably one in the front in a lot of different things with like Coats and Progressive with Coats and examples with connections and how they help in developing our teachers and so forth, working with our teachers and so forth. And in our specialized programs, we have a strength. I think we, as a small district, would not shy away from a lot of the programs that other districts have when it comes to each of our schools having some sort of vision or a focus school for their passion, whether it be arts, whether it be IB, whether it be STEM, whatever it may be. We have specialized focuses that I think a lot of school districts may not have, but that we have an emphasis on. And I know sometimes challenging, but the fact that it's there is a starting point, that is a strength.
And sometimes those strengths can be challenges as
Yes,
well.
yes.
And when you bifurcate it a little bit, maintaining those excellent programs.
Right.
Can be that be the case. Any other strengths? Things that you're most proud of, programs, projects?
I think we need to say it again. One of the strengths is board. We have a really good
Yeah,
board. I mean,
Absolutely.
I feel like we all respect each other. We all work well together, and I see a lot of boards that are not like that. So I think that should be a very, big strength.
That's, as I mentioned, a huge draw
Mhm.
for quality candidates. That's a question they ask.
Mhm.
And they'll, if you have meetings that have been archived. Oh, they'll want to watch how you actually look at them and how you treat your community, your staff.
Mhm.
Let's go to challenges. Could be declining enrollment. It could be a particular fiscal issue, could be facilities. I don't know, but let me begin with Madam President.
Declining enrollment is an issue for our area.
Everywhere.
Yes, everywhere.
A lot of our families can't afford to buy a home here because they're in the entertainment industry, We have hotels and amusement parks and things like that, and they don't make the wages to be able to afford a house. So a lot of families are moving or not having the children that they would like to have, So that's an issue for us. I think we also have some achievement gaps that are issues for us that we're working on.
Mrs. Vaughn?
Yeah, I just, same thing, the declining enrollment was my number one. Another challenge that we have is we do have some strong districts around us that entice some of our students. So we'd like to work on making sure that we're the focus district. This is where you want to be. And so not just looking at the numbers of declining enrollment, we want someone that's going to be able to come in and have some innovative ways of making, people differentiate between that district that everyone's running towards. I'm not going to name them.
They're running here.
But, just, we know, anyone that's here knows that it's a better district, but of course, people that are just hearing, so maybe just working on our marketing, yes, marketing would be great. Another thing that I want to just, it's not really a huge challenge. Well, it's a challenge, of course, but I feel like everyone's having it. Just coming out of, the pandemic, just raising morale. I feel like every district probably needs that, but our district really needs it too. It was a very hard 2 years that everyone had to go through, now 3 years. Coming out of that, we're still feeling the repercussions from, academically, socially, and everything. So that's definitely a challenge that I'd like someone to have the knowledge of what can be done to just help. The staff have been burdened with so much during that time. that what is something that can help us raise morale? And then when you raise morale, you know, you have the best spokesperson then in your district, because then they're able to say how great your district is. So, you know, that's your marketing, that's your free marketing, basically. But when people are unhappy, then, you know, that's the bad marketing that, you know, so for me, raising morale, declining enrollment, definitely, and marketing, yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
I have marketing, when you said it, so I think marketing can improve. Obviously, declining enrollment has been a challenge. But we've had our moments, where the communication internally and externally hasn't been, you know, very too well. So I'd still like to, put that as a challenge, so we can, you know, get to a point where that can be a strength. And then, I'd say, also closing the educational gap, as mentioned. Yes, we have a lot of passion programs. That's all great, but they're just programs. We want to make sure that even though they're just the programs, we want to elevate it to a higher educational level. So closing those gaps, so then the marketing doesn't come so much into question and they're going to a different district, as Mr. Ahmad is saying, right? So
It's all connected.
it's all connected.
Social emotional needs of students, but let's not forget our adults as well.
Yes.
They have to endure a lot of these things.
And I think including including more of the professional development, to all staff. Sometimes it can be a challenge because not everybody is getting this. I want to make sure that everybody across the board, receives that.
It's critical. Mrs. Strada?
I'd also want to say enrollment as well and closing that educational gap. But one of the other things is sort of, as Trustee Ahmad had said, understanding that we're coming out of a pandemic and some families do need extra help and they need like extra individual care. And if for someone that's just coming in and someone that might not know the community, they might have a challenge starting to get to know people and starting to be able to understand and individually help certain families and help get them out of their situations and help with their students' achievement. And I think that's really one of the challenges, but also strengths that they could have.
I wrote this down, families need extra support post-pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's accurate.
With that, so is that saying like more resources,
Yeah.
more resources?
Yeah, kind of understanding like the resources that they can get and helping families understand that they are available and that they will be able to help.
I think I actually her point on the resources. It's easier, I think everybody needs help, just not low income families. I think there should be resources available for all levels of parenting, or household situations. Because, you know, the middle class is now becoming, you know, it's non-existent now. It's like the new low income, right? So, and even those families are being denied some services when they really need them, just because they're still at a threshold where, you know, they don't qualify for these resources.
Many schools are now trying to bring in multiple services and resources for students at their school sites or at a center, perhaps a hub, whether it's dental, whether it's medical, whether it's social, emotional, that kind of thing. It's important. If you're a new entry into the school district, where do I go? Who do I turn to?
I expanded that to say families of all income levels need extra support and need more information about resources post-pandemic.
Yeah.
But I think it's not only post-pandemic. Certainly that has occurred, but I think we need it in general. Strong.
Yeah, I would agree on many of those, and then I would say maybe a challenge we face would be dealing with our financial outlook. What I mean by that is I feel we have spent many years now bringing us out, as Trustee Ahmad mentioned, in a better place. But I think the challenge will be how do we navigate so that there is appropriate usage and smart and financial literate ways to approach how we're going to make it
I like this.
distributed well as used well, because it took us this many years to build back solvency and be in a positive standing. So we want to now be able to utilize it in a good way. And there's a lot of needs, and we know there's a lot of areas that are needing that kind of love. So that's gonna be a challenge, knowing because there's only so much of the pie to share. So that's gonna be a challenge that you might have to see, because again, just because you're in a better place doesn't mean it's always a great place.
Yeah,
There comes with,
maintain it, kind of.
maintain as well as how to use it in a smart way.
Efficiently.
Yeah, efficiently. And that's gonna be our next challenge as well, I think, knowing how to bring that forward. I think
Given that there's been such a influx of funding, but that's no longer.
Yes.
Right.
The
Yeah.
long-term fiscal outlook
Yeah.
is not what has been experienced. In the last several
And
years.
that helped us get to where we are now, where I think we had to undo a lot of crazy stuff to get positive. And this last, silver lining of, I think this last couple of years actually was a lot of money. So that helped us continue to get into very positive black. But we want to maintain there, but also give love to things that have been not so given love to. So how do we balance all that? So that's a challenge. I think the behaviors has been a challenge across the board. So that's tied with mental health and SEL. And I think sometimes there's fatigue in even hearing the letters SEL anymore, because they're like, is it working? Or how do you approach that? So as our members mentioned about creative ways to bring that, not just, well, we got this program, now SEL can be better, like really heartfelt, connected. I think Trustee Estrada mentioned it was about compassion. I think that's the heart she's talking about. So something that we need to continue to put our heart into is so that the behaviors of students and even adults at this point in this world, how we are, the mental health, and really truly putting that support there, not just here's a space, now you're happy now, right? It doesn't work that way, right? How to connect. So that connected word again. I think a challenge is the achievement gap, but I think for me, it's more connected with the challenge of identity. I think our districts has started forming an identity and our schools are forming identities, and that links to marketing as well, but it's branding for me, branding with identity. So that's a challenge to maintain and continue, because you got to find silver lining in everything. I feel we came out of something that helped reset a lot of things is the pandemic. A lot of things have been changed upside down, reset. So a challenge would be, how do you find our footing in an identity that our staff, our district, our board, we're going through, is what is that, what we are about. So I think we do find confidence in everything that we do, and we find passion in it, but that doesn't still label your identity. And I know we said passion for learning, igniting passion learning is a motto and a vision, but still continued vision and identity set towards what are we completely about. And that story is going to continue to be a challenge, because I think everyone has different ideas. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but how do we bring that together and share that identity together, which links to marketing? Because then once you know that and you're strong about yourself, you don't have to market. People know who you are. So that will be part of our challenge.
And we often think of leadership and we leave off management, but they really go hand in hand. Leadership and the management of that, the board desiring someone to monitor those things, of course. I often used to say that our resources actualize our mission. So those predictable cliffs are going to be in the future in terms of finances. So that's always going to be a challenge.
May I just add to Mr. Chong's, how to balance out the budget and monies? I think another quality would be for the superintendent to understand financials, right? So, because they're going to work closely with the chief financial officer. And because we want to understand what is, one-time money, because a lot of money is coming in, right? And it's always like a gray, black area. Can we use it here? Can we not? So we want to have a clear indication and them to understand this is exactly where we can use it or not, right? So everybody is well aware, it's money that is just not coming in just because. It has to be isolated and used in specific ways that it can be used in others.
It's interesting, in 07, 08, during the Great Recession, a lot of superintendents that were being hired were former chief business officers as a result of the dilemma that was taking place at that point in time.
Yes.
LCAP and LCFF has actually kind of evened the playing field, because instruction, human resources, chief business officers and superintendents are now combining their efforts, their conversations and their information about that. So very good.
That's all they really wanted at that time, just someone that understands the money. It was-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a kind of a desperation there.
Mhm.
I remember being asked a question. The first thing I said is, we don't panic. Now let's be strategic about things. Any other challenges that you'd like us to post? With that being said, we need to conclude open session and we'll go into closed session.
I'll motion to go to closed session.
Thank you, and thank you. All right, so we, did we get those two? All right, so,
All those in favor?
all in, no discussion, all in favor?
I,
Aye, and I'm an aye, so motion passes 5-0. And we are going into closed session at
6:35.
6:35. Reconvene. Do I have a motion to reconvene?
A motion.
Thank you, trustee Chong. Do I have a second? Thank you, trustee Estrada. Is there any discussion? All right, then with no discussion on that, and we will move to approve, and all in favor?
All right.
Aye. And I, do so, don't have to, I'm gonna, don't have to say motion passes and we 5-0 first?
Yes.
Okay, and so, the governing board meeting reconvenes at 7:39. Okay. All right. And then reporting out of closed session. Let the record show that there is no action, that no action was taken in closed session. And then that brings us to adjournment. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, trustee Ahmad. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Chong. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and I'm an aye, so the motion passes with a 5-0 vote. The governing board meeting adjourns at 7:40.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.